If you were born before 1955, I need you to stop what you are doing right now and stay with me for the next 10 minutes because there is a very real chance that the Social Security check landing in your account every single month is smaller than what you're actually owed. Not by a little. I'm talking about hundreds of dollars a month, potentially thousands of dollars every year, sitting in a government calculation that was done wrong. And nobody from the Social Security Administration is going to pick up the phone and call you to tell you about it. That is not how this system works. The system sends you a number, you accept the number, and the money you were supposed to receive just quietly disappears. Today, I'm going to show you exactly why this happens, how to find out if it happened to you, and the specific steps you take to fix it before another month goes by. Stay until the end. The last step is the one almost nobody takes, and it is the only step that actually moves money from the SSI system into your account. If you are not subscribed yet, do that right now and turn on the bell. Social Security rules, benefit calculations, and correction procedures change every single year. When they change, nobody from the government explains what it means for your specific situation. That is exactly what this channel does. Subscribe and let's get into it. Before I get into the details, let me share something that happened last year that has stuck with me. A retired mechanic in Tucson named Harold had been receiving Social Security payments for 9 years straight. Each month, $1,412 landed in his account like clockwork. He never once questioned it. He assumed the government had it handled. Then his daughter, who happens to work in accounting, sat down with him one afternoon and pulled up his Social Security earnings statement online. It took her only about 4 minutes to spot the problem. 3 years back in the mid-1980s were showing $0 in earned income, despite the fact that Harold had been working that entire stretch. He still had his old W-2s tucked away in a shoebox in the closet. They submitted a correction request. The SSA verified the mistake. His monthly benefit jumped by more than $100, and he was issued a retroactive payment covering every month since he had first filed. Harold's situation isn't rare. In fact, it happens far more often than most people would guess, and the underlying cause is always the same. Nobody ever told him to go check. Here's a quick fact that most retirees never hear until it's too late. The average earnings record error, once caught, adds up to real money almost every time, which is exactly why checking your file matters more than people think. So let me lay out the foundation of everything I'm about to walk you through. The Social Security Administration figures out your monthly retirement benefit by looking at your highest earning 35 years across your entire working life. They pull those 35 years, adjust them for inflation, average them together, and run the result through a formula that produces what's called your primary insurance amount. That figure is what your check is built on. Here's where things start to go wrong. Every single dollar feeding into that calculation comes from earnings records submitted by your employers, sometimes stretching back to the 1970s, the 1960s, or even earlier. The SSA itself has admitted to roughly $2.5 billion in underpayments during 2022 alone. And based on research from Social Security Intelligence, close to half of all earnings record mismatches in the system never get fixed simply because the affected individuals had no idea to look. Even one missing year in that record permanently lowers your benefit. Miss 2 or 3 years and the shortfall compounds. One analyst crunched the numbers and discovered that 5 missing years of earnings history can shrink a monthly Social Security check by more than $150. Stretch that across a 20-year retirement, and you're looking at $36,000 gone. Not because of anything you did wrong, but because nobody pointed you toward the file. Now here's a layer most people never even hear about. Some retirees have found extra credits simply by requesting a second review of their earnings file years after their first correction, a step almost nobody thinks to repeat. Now, let's add the second piece to this puzzle, because for anyone born between 1944 and 1954, there's a specific calculation quirk that has quietly cost millions of retirees a meaningful chunk of what they were promised. And it all hinges on one date that most people never fully grasped. If you were born anywhere from 1943 through 1954, your full retirement age per the Social Security Administration is 66, not 65, not 67, exactly 66. That's the age at which you're entitled to the full 100% of your earned benefit. Here's the catch. The Social Security Administration lets people claim as early as age 62, and millions did just that, particularly during stretches when jobs felt unstable or health was slipping. What a lot of those folks were never plainly told is that claiming ahead of your full retirement age doesn't just mean smaller checks for a while until things even out. It permanently shrinks your benefit for the rest of your life. Claim at 62 with a full retirement age of 66, and your monthly benefit takes a permanent 25% cut. On what should have been a $2,000 monthly benefit, that's $500 every month you'll never see again for as long as you live. Last spring, a woman in Columbus named Dorothy shared in a retirement planning forum that she'd been collecting Social Security for 7 years and had only just discovered her check was 25% below her full benefit because she'd filed early. In her own words, more or less, when she filed at 62, nobody at the office sat her down to explain what that choice would cost her for the rest of her life. She was handed a monthly figure, and she signed the paperwork. She said she wished someone had broken it down for her the way a friend eventually did over coffee one afternoon. Her story resonated with a lot of people because it isn't some rare exception. It's one of the most common financial regrets in the retirement community, and it follows a very specific pattern for people in her age bracket. I want to be upfront about one thing. If you've already been collecting for years and you filed early, I'm not trying to make you feel bad about it. What I do want to show you is that there could still be money you haven't recovered for reasons that have nothing to do with when you filed. Because here's something most people don't realize, even if you claimed at exactly the right moment. At 66, your full retirement age, the check you're getting today could still be wrong, because the earnings record behind that calculation may have never been corrected. And that part is fixable. That's the part the SSA will genuinely act on once you bring them proof. So, here's what I want you to actually do, and this is the section of the video worth writing down. Step 1, head to ssa.gov and either create or log into your My Social Security account. It takes roughly 10 minutes if this is your first time. Once inside, look for your earnings history, a year-by-year breakdown of every dollar ever reported to Social Security under your name and Social Security number. Go through it line by line. You're specifically hunting for any year that looks off. A year showing $0 when you know full well you are working. A year where the income figure looks suspiciously low compared to what you actually earned. Any gap anywhere along your work timeline. Find one of those, and you've found money that got quietly excluded from your benefit calculation without you ever knowing. Step 2, gather your paperwork. Dig up your old tax returns, 1-2 forms, pay stubs. Anything showing what you truly earned during the years that look questionable in your record. You don't need every document going back 40 years. Start with whatever you've got. Even 2 or 3 years of proof can be enough to kick off a correction. Step 3. File Form SSA 708. That's the official request for correction of earnings record, and you can grab it straight from the SSA website. Fill it out, attach your documentation, and mail it in. You can also handle this by calling the SSA at 1-800-772-1213 and requesting an earnings record review, or by visiting your local Social Security office in person with your paperwork in hand. Once your request is submitted, the SSA runs your documentation against their own records and credits any missing earnings. The correction process typically takes somewhere between 10 and 90 days. If you're owed a balance, they'll calculate the back pay and send it as a lump sum direct deposit. One quick reminder before you move on, the sooner you check, the better your odds. Records don't get easier to fix with age, they get harder. Now here's something about timing you don't want to overlook. While the SSA does have some flexibility to fix clear-cut errors no matter how old they are, there's a general rule of thumb that earnings are easiest to correct within 3 years, 3 months, and 15 days from the end of the tax year those wages were paid. Meaning, the mistake, the tougher it can be to resolve, and the more paperwork you'll need to back it up. This isn't meant to alarm you. It's simply a reason to act sooner rather than later. Had Harold and Tucson waited another 5 years to dig up that shoebox, those 1980s earnings might have been gone for good. I also want to touch on something that comes up constantly whenever I cover this subject: delayed retirement credits. If you were born between 1943 and 1954 and held off claiming past your full retirement age of 66, the SSA was supposed to boost your benefit by 8% for every year you waited, all the way up to age 70. That adds up to a potential 32% increase over your full benefit if you waited the entire way to 70. What's worth double-checking is whether those delayed retirement credits actually got applied correctly to your record when you eventually filed. Mistakes in that calculation are less frequent, but they do occur. And if your benefit should reflect 3 or 4 years of delayed credits and it doesn't, there's real money sitting unclaimed. When you log into your My Social Security account, you can view the benefit estimate broken down piece by piece. If the numbers don't line up with what you were told or expected, that's worth picking up the phone over. Back in May of this year, a government oversight report confirmed that thousands of widows and widowers had been shortchanged because of a calculation error tied to something called the Widows Indexing Computation. The SSA itself owned up to the issue. These individuals hadn't done anything wrong. They filed correctly, waited the appropriate amount of time, and the math inside the SSA's own system was applied incorrectly during a manual processing step. The Inspector General estimated that around 40% of surviving spouses reviewed during that stretch may have been impacted by similar mistakes. 40%. That's not a small rounding error. That's a systemic issue the government quietly admits to when questioned, but doesn't exactly go out of its way to broadcast. Here's the part I want to stick with you after this video ends. The Social Security Administration isn't out to get you. Most people working there are simply doing their jobs, but the system itself is massive. It's complicated. It was built on decades of paper files and manual data entry. And honestly, it makes mistakes that cost real people real money. Catching those mistakes isn't the SSA's job, it's yours. And the only way to catch them is to actually look. If you were born before 1955, your full retirement age was 66. Your benefit was supposed to be based on your 35 highest earning years, recorded accurately and indexed correctly. Before you click away from this video, go to sad.gov, log into your My Social Security account, and pull up your earnings history. Every single year, all the way back to the start. If something looks off, it probably is. The form you need to fix it is SSA 708. And the number to call is 1-800-772-1223. Send this video to one person you love who was born before 1955 and is currently collecting Social Security. Sharing it takes 10 seconds. If their earnings record is missing even a single year, tracking it down could put over $1,000 a year back into their pocket, permanently. Money the SSA has been miscalculating this whole time without ever sending a letter to explain it. That's exactly what this video is here to do. See you in the next one.